I stood outside the villa for a long time. The winter wind whipped against my face, leaving it as numb as my heart. When the thermometer pressed against my forehead, I knew it was that day of the month again. Beep, beep, beep. The sharp alarm sounded, and the brass bell hanging at the main gate was immediately rung, urgent, like a death knell. The two wolf guards stationed by the door finally stepped aside, silent. There was no respect in their eyes for me, their Luna, only indifference and impatience. And all of this was permitted by my husband, Alpha Damien. Hurry inside. Your fertile window won't wait for you. Just as I was about to step forward, the housekeeper, Mary, rushed out first, her tone sharp and hurried, as if I were the one keeping myself outside. To an outsider, it would look like I was a surrogate mother here to meet her client. But the truth, I was here to see my mate, my husband, yet every time it was like this, confirmed by the thermometer, summoned by the bell, scolded by the housekeeper. And my arrival truly was like that of a surrogate fulfilling a biological contract, a mechanical transaction and nothing more. All because, as Luna, I had only given birth to a daughter in all these years, failing to produce a male heir for this pack. Even though I nearly died bringing my daughter into the world, my heart stopped multiple times on the operating table. None of it mattered. In this werewolf society still clinging to primal traditions, a woman's worth is measured only by her fertility. And my husband is no ordinary man. He is the alpha, the leader of this pack. Without a male heir, Damien's position would be questioned, even challenged by other alphas. And I, Damien's mate, forced upon him, standing in the way of him and his true love. Tiffany, if I also cost him his power, I would have no reason to exist at all. How ironic. The fate of a power I would never possess rested entirely on my shoulders. I lowered my head, a self-mocking twist to my lips, and followed Mary step by step through the familiar yet alien hallway to Damien's door. This place I visited only once a month. This husband I saw only during my fertile window. Come in. Mary's hand was just raised to knock when the voice came from inside first. Of course, he always knew when I was coming. We were bound mates. He can always catch my scent, just as I can catch his. Only in moments like these was there any proof our mate bond still existed. Mary withdrew her hand and stepped aside. I pushed the door open. Damien stood by the window, his back to me, broad shoulders etched in cold, hard lines by the moonlight. I closed the door behind me. He didn't turn, just issued a cold command. He turned his icy gaze upon me, his voice cutting through the heavy silence like broken glass. You know why you are here, Sophia. Do not waste my time. The sheer emotional distance was more crippling than any blow. He looked right through me, treating my presence as nothing more than a formal, cold obligation. I kept my eyes on the floor, counting the seconds in my heart, wishing I could dissolve into the shadows. When the heavy door finally shut behind him, leaving me in the freezing dark, I realized that the invisible bond between us hadn't just faded, it had completely shattered. The entire time, he didn't speak a word, didn't look at me once. I pushed myself up, wrapping the thin blanket scattered by the formal obligation around me. My voice was hoarse. Damien, can we talk? His footsteps paused for a second, but he didn't turn. Talk about what? His tone was icy. About how you still haven't conceived an heir. I wanted to ask. I heard myself say, my voice trembling despite my efforts to steady it. Can Ashley come live with me? I haven't seen her in so long. I miss. I haven't stopped you from seeing her." Damien cut me off, finally turning around. His face was in shadow, his expression unreadable, but his amber eyes held no warmth. "Your only task now is to get pregnant and bear an heir. Until that is done, don't ask for anything beyond your place." "Beyond my place? She is my daughter." My voice cracked. "And mine," Damien said coldly. "She doesn't need a mother drowning in self-pity." The words sliced through me, precise and brutal. Without another glance, he walked out of the room. Slam. The door shut hard, rattling the entire room. I sat alone in the darkness, wrapped in a thin blanket, like a discarded ghost. The wolf inside me was keening. She missed Ashley so much. I could feel her pain, her despair. As mates, we were meant to receive our partner's care and protection. But Damien gave us only indifference and humiliation. The mate bond wailed within me like a thread about to snap. "It is okay," I whispered to my wolf. "It'll get better." But I didn't even believe it myself. I had to do something to soothe her, to soothe myself, even if it was just a hollow comfort. It took a long time before I reached for my phone on the nightstand. My fingers moved mechanically, swiping and tapping open the Instagram profile. I checked every month, not Damien's, because Damien's account was private, visible only to the pack. I had long been removed from his followers. How pathetic. I had to rely on another woman's social media to catch a glimpse of my own husband alive and real. But even so, I kept looking. Call it aftercare, a hollow comfort. For that, I could even ignore the stinging comments. I could pretend those bright smiles were meant for me. Pretend that gentle Damien still existed. Pretend I still mattered in his life. But no matter how hard I tried, I could never overlook the woman beside him. Tiffany, radiant in a silver gown under the flashbulbs, and the joy on Damien's face, something I had never seen before. They walked the red carpet hand in hand, fingers laced, smiling as naturally as a real couple. Even through photos, I could sense the resonance between them. That kind of harmony, that chemistry. It was something Damien and I never had. "Ama, you two are perfect together. Tiffany, you are the one who truly suits Alpha Damien. You should be our Luna." Yeah, Sophia is so outdated. Those comments couldn't hurt me anymore. Not until rumor has it Ashley isn't even Sophia's child. The replies were worse. Right. I noticed it too. At the last gala, Ashley clung to Tiffany the whole time and barely even looked at Sophia. Could Tiffany actually be Ashley's mother? Maybe the alpha only let Sophia be the nominal mother for political reasons. That would explain it. No wonder she hasn't been able to bear an heir all these years. My hands trembled. They didn't know. They knew nothing. That night, I lay on the operating table, her life hung by a fragile thread. The doctors declared my condition critical. Since I was carrying a useless girl, they advised terminating the pregnancy to save my life. But I refused. I insisted on giving birth to my daughter. Even if no one in this world welcomed her, I loved her with all my life. I still remember hearing Ashley's first cry and smiling weakly, feeling it was all worth it. But now they said she might not be mine, that another woman could be her mother. How could they? Just then, the sound of suitcase wheels and footsteps echoed from outside the door. My wolf, hearing, caught it clearly. One of them belonged to Damien. He was leaving again, going to Tiffany. I had no time left. This was my only chance for the month. I could endure everything. His indifference, the monthly humiliation, the vicious words online. But I could not endure anyone slandering the bond between my daughter and me. I ignored the rules. Ignored that this room was only mine for 1 hour each month. I grabbed the blanket from the formal obligation, wrapped it around myself, and rushed out barefoot. The hallway was dark. My bare feet met the cold marble floor as I hurried down the stairs. Too fast, I slipped, nearly tumbling down the steps. I grabbed the railing to steady myself, heart hammering. Just as I was about to step out of the dark stairwell, a familiar voice drifted up from the foyer below. "Where are you going so late?" It was Helen, Damien's mother. She never liked me. Instinctively, I stopped, shrinking back into the shadow of the landing. "Mother, I am running late. Tiffany needs me." Damien's voice held a tenderness and urgency I had never heard. At this hour, his mother's tone wasn't disapproving, it was understanding. "And Sophia isn't today." "It is done," Damien cut her off, impatient. A silence fell. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud in the still corridor. "Damien," Helen began again, her voice taking on a calculating edge. "If you ask me, you shouldn't pin your hopes on Sophia any longer. Tiffany should bear your heir." I clutched the blanket tighter, nails digging into my palms. "Mother." Damien sounded hesitant. I strained to listen, waiting for his response. I thought he might at least say it was the moon goddess's will, or that it was for Ashley's sake. But what he said was, "It is too dangerous, Mother." I froze. "Ha, what?" I almost thought I'd misheard, but the cruel words came again, clear as ice. "Pregnancy takes a toll. Childbirth is life-threatening. I can't let her take that risk." What a devoted declaration. And it was my mate saying it for another woman. I pressed my hands over my mouth, forcing my wolf down, silencing even my breath. I couldn't let anyone see me like this. "Ha!" Helen laughed, the sound full of approval. "You are right. Someone as perfect as Tiffany shouldn't be risked." She paused and her voice turned icy. "Sophia is an outsider to our legacy anyway." Helen's voice turned dangerously quiet. "Once she fulfills her duty, she should be cast aside completely." I never knew a conversation so horrifying, so vicious, could sink even lower. So Tiffany could rightfully take my place as Luna of this pack, as my husband's wife, as my child's mother. Ouch. The wolf inside me let out a mournful, despairing howl. I couldn't hear anything else they said. Then came the sound of the front door opening and closing, followed by footsteps coming up the stairs. I pressed myself against the wall, holding still until the steps faded completely. Suddenly, a wave of nausea hit me. I covered my mouth and ran back upstairs barefoot, rushing into my room and slamming the bathroom door behind me. I dropped to my knees before the toilet, retching violently. My stomach was empty. All that came up was bitter bile and despair. When it was over, I slumped on the cold tile floor, back against the wall, tears falling silently. 10 years. A whole decade, living here like a ghost. I thought if I was obedient enough, if I could just produce an heir, things would get better. But they wanted me dead. I started to laugh, a hollow, broken sound that echoed in the bathroom, like sobbing. Enough. I wiped my tears and pushed myself up. The woman in the mirror was pale, eyes swollen. But in those eyes, finally, there was a light. The light of resolution. I refused to endure this humiliation. I refused to cling to a hope that never existed. I want a divorce. I want the bond severed. I want to take Ashley and leave this place far behind. Even if the whole world opposes it. Even if pack law forbids it. Even if it means stripping me of my title as Luna. I will leave. 3 days later, I stood before the bathroom sink, staring at 3 pregnancy tests. 2 lines, 2 lines, 2 lines. Each one clearly displayed the same result. Pregnant. I was actually pregnant. My trembling fingers picked up the first stick, then the second, then the third. I checked them over and over, hoping I was mistaken. But reality offered no escape. How could this be? I had just resolved to leave, hadn't even begun to make arrangements, and fate played this cruel joke. What was I supposed to do? This child shouldn't exist. Not now. Not at the very moment I decided to escape. My hand drifted to my lower abdomen. It was still flat, but I knew a new life was quietly taking root. If it was a son, I'd be forced to stay, only to die in some unfortunate accident, after childbirth, clearing the way for Tiffany to take over. If it was a daughter, I'd become a laughingstock once more, the failure who produced 2 useless girls in a row. Either way, this child would be my cage. Sophia. Helen's shrill voice cut through the door. I snapped back to the present, frantically shoving all 3 tests into my coat pocket. My heart hammered against my ribs. My palms were slick with cold sweat. Bang! The door was thrown open, violently. Helen stormed in like a hurricane, the head housekeeper and 2 maids trailing behind her. Her face was alight with impatience, her eyes gleaming with a sick excitement. Well, everyone knew this was the time of the month for the test. The housekeeper knew, the maids knew, the cook probably knew. Even the pack's young pups likely knew. My cycle, my ovulation, my fertile window. These intimate details were public knowledge within the pack. No one had ever considered my privacy, not even my past self. I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. Before my prepared excuse could leave my lips, she shoved me aside and marched straight to the sink, snatching up the test strip I'd left there. She held it close to her eyes. The next second, smack. Nothing again? She hurled the stick onto the marble floor where it shattered into pieces. What good are you? I watched her rage in silence. Do you think silence is enough? 10 years. A full decade. Helen's voice climbed higher, sharper. What have you brought this family besides one useless girl? Do you know what the pack says about you? No, but I am sure you are eager to tell me, I replied calmly. Helen faltered, clearly taken aback by my response. They say you are barren, she spat venomously, that you are a curse. That because of you, Damien's authority is undermined. He should have rejected you from the start. He should have married Tiffany. Then perhaps they're right, I said, lifting my head to meet her gaze. The air in the room froze. What? Helen's voice became a shriek. I said, perhaps they're right. Perhaps I am a curse, I repeated, each word deliberate. I took 2 steps forward, my face shadowed. So it is best you don't provoke me, or you'll learn the consequences. The two maids gasped in horror. The housekeeper's face paled. Helen's face flushed crimson. She pointed a trembling finger at me, speechless with rage. You? Ignoring her stammering, I continued, and I know you prefer Tiffany. Damien loves her more. I'll be leaving soon. Let her bear your heir. That is your duty, not hers, Helen roared. The moon goddess matched you with Damien. It is your obligation to bear his children. You will keep bearing them until you produce a son. The moon goddess? I laughed, the sound dripping with bitterness. The moon goddess commands me to breed but grants me no real marriage. Makes me Luna but denies me basic respect. What kind of deity is that? Silence. How dare you blaspheme? Crack. A sharp slap landed across my face. Pain exploded from my cheek. My head snapped to the side, ears ringing. I could even taste blood in the corner of my mouth. You ungrateful wretch. Helen's voice shook. It was my son who gave you the title of Luna, who gave you status and wealth, and you dare complain. Slowly, I turned my head back, running my tongue over the cut on my lip. 10 years. How many times had I been struck in these 10 years? I'd lost count. Every single time I'd bowed my head, apologized, endured, told myself everything would be fine once I produced an heir. But not this time. I wouldn't endure it anymore. I raised my hand. This time, I would fight back. A hand shot out and clamped around my wrist. The grip so tight, it hurt. Damien stood there, having appeared out of nowhere. His alpha presence instantly dominated the room. Everyone bowed their heads, holding their breath. If this were the old me, I would have done the same. But the me now no longer cared. Let go of me, I said coldly. Have you lost your mind? Damien stared at me, his gaze icy, raising a hand against Mother. She hit me first. I pointed to my swollen cheek. Are you blind? Damien's eyes flickered over my face, lingering on the vivid handprint for less than a second before moving away. You disrespected her first, he stated flatly. I froze. That sentence proved it. He had seen Helen strike me, and he didn't care. Apologize to Mother, he commanded. Why should I? Because she is an elder. The former Luna. Damien's tone was one of simple fact. You will show respect. And what about me? I heard my voice tremble. I am the current Luna, who respects me. Damien frowned, as if the question were absurd. Sophia, don't be difficult. He released my wrist. His gaze dropped to the shattered pregnancy test on the floor. A flicker of disappointment and disgust through his eyes. The look one gives a defective product, a failed investment. But he said nothing. He stepped past me toward the housekeeper standing by the door. He took an insulated food carrier from him. Is it ready? Yes, Alpha, the housekeeper replied respectfully. All Miss Tiffany's favorite French dishes. So that was it. That was why he'd come back. Not for the test results. Not even for pack business. He'd returned to fetch Tiffany's favorite meal. If Helen didn't also favor this chef's cooking, and a replacement couldn't be found, I had no doubt Damien would have taken our personal chef with him, just so Tiffany could have the finest food every day. I stood there, watching him carefully cradle the carrier, a trace of softness even touching his lips. How long had it been since I'd seen that softness? 5 years. 10. I couldn't even remember. Damien, Helen began. Mother, I must go. Tiffany is waiting. Damien cut her off, turning to leave. Damien, I called out. He turned back impatiently. What now? We should sever the bond. I want a divorce. When I said it, everything felt calmer than I'd imagined. The air in the room solidified. The housekeeper stood rigid. The two maids gasped into their hands. Helen's face drained of color. Damien turned fully, his eyes fixed on me. There was no shock in his gaze, only annoyance. A new game. I don't have time for this, he said, as if dealing with a minor nuisance. Tiffany is hungry. She is waiting for me. And with that, he actually left. His footsteps faded down the hall, followed by the sound of the door opening, closing, and a car engine starting. He was gone. I asked for a divorce, and he said, Tiffany is hungry. How a 10-year marriage weighed less than one of Tiffany's meals. I stood rooted to the spot, and suddenly I began to laugh. The sound echoed in the silent room, bordering on hysterical. Have you gone mad? Helen stared at me. What are you laughing at? I am laughing at my own stupidity, I said, wiping non-existent tears from the corner of my eye. 10 years worth of stupidity. I turned and walked toward the door. You stop right there, Helen shouted after me. I did not dismiss you, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stand another second in that room. I couldn't bear to see Helen's contorted face or breathe that suffocating air any longer. I was leaving, no longer waiting for Damien's permission, no longer heeding Helen's commands, no longer bound by pack law. I would take Ashley, I would take the child in my womb, and I would leave this place forever. I pushed open the door to the study. This was where Damien handled pack affairs, typically heavily guarded, but now it stood empty. He'd been in such a hurry to reach Tiffany that he hadn't even locked it. I walked straight to his desk and pulled open a drawer. Our marriage certificate, asset portfolios, pack accounting ledgers, all meticulously filed and organized. Damien was always thorough, precise. I took out the documents I needed and spread them on the desk. Then I turned on the computer and began drafting the divorce petition. Assets, custody terms. I listed them one by one, each clause born from a decade of humiliation and quiet fury. Finally, at the end, I added one more line. This agreement shall take effect immediately upon signing. No revocation permitted. With the final word typed, I took a deep breath and hit print. The printer hummed softly, spitting out page after page. I gathered them, collated the documents, and slid them into a folder. Now, I needed to find Ashley, my daughter, the daughter I hadn't seen for so long. It had been 3 months since Damien moved her to his private residence. He said the environment there was better for nurturing a future alpha female, that my quarters were too oppressive, that I would hinder her growth. But I knew the real reason. To give Tiffany more chances to get close, to replace me in my daughter's heart. I tucked the folder under my arm, stood up, and took one last look around the room. This room I was never permitted to enter. This room that symbolized Damien's power and status. This room that once filled me with awe. Now, I only felt the urgent need to leave. I was going to see my daughter, to tell her we were leaving. We were starting a new life. I left the main house. My wolf stirred restlessly in my chest, but my steps were firm. I refused to look back at that cold, imposing structure. When I arrived at Damien's private residence, Ashley's current home, and stepped inside, her scent enveloped me immediately. A hint of milk and lavender, the shampoo I used to choose for her. I hurried upstairs and pushed open her bedroom door. She was sitting at her craft table, drawing. She looked up at the sound. Ashley. I rushed to her, pulling her into my arms, my daughter. The child I nearly died to bring into this world. I couldn't help but press a flurry of kisses to her cheek. Her scent was the only pure thing left in my life. I had missed her so much. Mom, that is gross. She wrinkled her little nose, wiping her cheek. I smiled, though the comment stung. I am sorry, baby. I've just missed you so much. She just shrugged, as if my longing were unnecessary, as if the months apart meant nothing. My wolf whimpered low inside. A pup should crave her mother's scent, her warmth, her closeness. But Ashley simply sat back down and resumed sorting her crayons. How have you been? I sat beside her. Did you sleep well last night? Are you eating enough? You. Mom, she cut me off, not even looking up. I want to go to East Street Preschool. Aunt Tiffany says it is the best. The words hit me like a physical blow. Aunt Tiffany. She said it so casually, so familiarly, as if that woman were the one closest to her. If you want to go, I'll enroll you, I said, forcing a smile. Ashley nodded, but showed no excitement. She didn't even smile at me. I took a deep breath, choosing my next words carefully. Sweetheart. Mom was thinking, would you like to move back and live with me? I couldn't bring myself to be direct yet. Not ready to tell her we were leaving this place for good. She finally looked up at me, confusion in her eyes. Why? Because... My voice trembled. Because I miss you. I want to see you every day. I want to read you bedtime stories, have breakfast with you. But Aunt Tiffany reads to me, Ashley said. Her stories are way better than yours. Each word was a knife, precise and cruel. And, she continued, a hint of disdain in her tone, you are always crying and sad when you come. Aunt Tiffany says it is because you are not well. Ashley, Aunt Tiffany never cries, she interrupted. She is strong. She says I have to be strong too, not weak like you. Every syllable was a laceration. My wolf flinched violently, a growl rumbling deep in my consciousness. Tiffany had been poisoning my child, twisting her perception of me. Baby, that is not true, I said, struggling to keep my voice even. Mom isn't weak. Mom is just... Aunt Tiffany says you are afraid to have babies. That is why you won't give me a brother. Ashley's gaze turned cold. She says you are selfish. I froze. I am not afraid. My voice shook. Ashley, when I had you, I almost died, but I never regretted it for a second. Aunt Tiffany says that is because you are fragile, Ashley cut in again. But she says she is strong. She can give Dad a brother. She says if Dad marries her, I could have a brother. My hands clenched into fists. Ashley, listen to me. Her smartwatch lit up. Tiffany's name flashed on the screen. Her eyes immediately brightened with an excitement I had never seen directed at me. It is Aunt Tiffany, she cheered. I reached for the watch. Ashley, we're not finished talking. It is important, She clutched the watch to her chest, looking at me with a hostility that was almost alien. I recoiled. That look, that posture, as if I were a stranger trying to hurt her. Fine, I forced myself to stand. You have 5 minutes. I walked out of the room, closing the door softly behind me. Leaning against the hallway wall, I took deep breaths, trying to calm the storm inside me. But the pregnancy had heightened my hearing. My wolf senses, already sharp, were now nearly uncontrollable. Even through the door, I could hear Ashley's voice with perfect clarity. "Aunt Tiffany, I miss you so much." My breath hitched. "I want to hear the bedtime story you tell. I like your hugs better." "Aunt Tiffany, are you going to stay with me?" Ashley's small voice drifted through the door. "They told me Mom is going to leave and go somewhere very far away. I don't want to be left alone. I like your stories. Please don't leave me behind like she might." My wolf convulsed as if kicked in the ribs. A hand flew to my mouth. I slid down the wall, sinking to my knees on the floor. Tears welled up too fast to stop. Ashley saw Tiffany as her mother, not me. Not the one who carried her for 9 months, fought for her, nearly died for her. Tiffany had taken my husband. Now she was taking my child. A suffocating feeling rose. I pushed myself up, staggering toward the balcony. I needed air. I needed to breathe. With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone and dialed Damien. He rejected the call. I dialed again. Rejected again. A third time. This time he answered, his voice thick with annoyance. "What is it, Sophia? I told you. You need to come home, Mao." I cut him off, my voice so cold it surprised even me. "It is about Ashley. This can't wait. I am in a meeting. This can." "If you don't come," I interrupted again, enunciating each word, "I swear I will walk right up to the reporters outside your office and give them a front-row view of the father and alpha you really are." Silence. Then a low growl. "I am on my way." I hung up. Standing by the window, I watched the driveway, my heart pounding. Minutes later, a sleek black luxury car pulled in. I expected Damien to get out alone, but Tiffany stepped out of the passenger side first. She was holding Damien's arm, carrying herself like she already owned the place. Like she was the Luna of this pack. My wolf bared its fangs. This was deliberate. She knew I was here. She wanted me to see. "Aunt Tiffany." Ashley's shriek came from downstairs. Before I could react, she had burst out of the house and thrown herself into Tiffany's arms. The sheer joy, the unbridled delight on her face. It was something I had never seen directed at me. Tiffany lifted her easily. Over Ashley's shoulder, her eyes met mine. A smile of pure victory curling her lip. Something inside me snapped. I rushed downstairs, striding toward them. "Put my daughter down." "She came to me," Tiffany said sweetly, gently patting Ashley's back. What was I supposed to do? Reject a child's affection? "You have no right to touch her." My voice shook. "She is my daughter, not yours." "Sophia, calm down." Damien finally spoke, his tone dripping with impatience. "Calm down." I whirled to face him, staring in disbelief. "You want me to calm down? Look at what she is doing. She is holding my child in front of me. And Ashley. Ashley likes her," Damien stated coldly. "What is the problem?" "The problem." A hysterical laugh nearly escaped me. "The problem she is replacing me. She is making Ashley believe she is the mother. Perhaps, Damien's icy gaze locked on me, perhaps she would be a better one. For a moment, I simply stood there, unable to breathe as Damien's words echoed in my ears. Tiffany will be a better mother to her than you ever were. I stared at him, stunned. I could feel my wolf dropping to her knees inside me with a soft, wounded whine. My heart didn't just hurt, it cracked open. It felt like someone had driven claws straight through it. What did you just say? I whispered. Damien, what do you mean by that? How can you say something like... But he ignored me completely as if I were nothing more than an inconvenient noise. He placed a hand on Tiffany's lower back. He did it so casually, so intimately. He guided her toward the villa's entrance. Seeing him touch her like that, right in front of me, felt like being stabbed in the chest. My wolf's fur raised in anger and humiliation, but she was too injured to snarl. Damien, I called again, louder. Look at me, explain what you meant. He finally stopped, but he still did not look at me. Instead, he looked down at Ashley, smoothing her hair, the way he never did for me or for our daughter unless someone else was watching. Tiffany smirked slightly, and Ashley leaned into her like she was the safest person in the world. What I meant, he finally said, is that Ashley needs someone dependable, someone who is actually present, someone who isn't always buried in work or too tired to handle her. My lips parted in disbelief. I work because you told me to. You said the family valued ambition. You said Aluna should contribute. Damien, you. He cut me off with a dismissive wave. You are always busy, always away. Ashley needs stability. I am her mother, I snapped. I am her mother, Damien. You can't replace me with someone who is actually here. He shot back, finally turning to meet my eyes. His eyes were hard, alpha cold. It pushed against my chest with the force of dominance, demanding submission. But I fought it. I had to. Tiffany placed a soothing hand on his arm. Damien, let's calm down. I am sure Sophia didn't mean to cause trouble. She is probably just overwhelmed. Her voice was soft and sweet. She petted his arm like she tamed him. My wolf growled in my chest. Damien, I said again through clenched teeth, you still haven't answered my question. What do you mean Ashley needs someone dependable once I get pregnant again? Why would that even be Tiffany's responsibility? Tiffany stiffened. Damien's silence was enough of an answer. Something cold slid down my spine. What did you do? Damien let out a breath, as if bored by my confusion. I moved Tiffany Stonewall Villa temporarily. My eyes widened. You what? She'll be staying here full time, he continued, as Ashley's guardian. Ice flooded my veins. Where is Miss Dale, the nanny I hired? Fired, he said bluntly. Tiffany will take her place. It felt like the ground tilted under me. Without asking me, she is our daughter. How dare you make decisions without consulting? My decisions are final, he said flatly. This arrangement is what is best for Ashley. No, I whispered. My voice was shaking violently now. This arrangement is what is best for you and Tiffany. Tiffany opened her mouth, probably to offer another sickeningly sweet line, but something inside me snapped. I stepped closer, breathing heavily. Stay out of it, Tiffany. I swear to the goddess, stay out of. Sophia, she said with feigned gentleness, reaching out as if to comfort me. I am not trying to replace you. I am only trying to help. Ashley deserves. My hand moved before thought could catch up. I slapped her. The sound echoed in the hallway. Tiffany's head snapped to the side. She stared at me, stunned. She had her hand pressed to her cheek. For the first time, her mask slipped. She wasn't sweet. She wasn't gentle. She was furious. Ashley gasped and immediately ran to her, shielding Tiffany with her tiny arms as if I were the villain in her story. "Mommy," she cried. Her eyes were filled with tears. "You are a bad mom. Why would you hit Auntie Tiffany?" My wolf was stunned. Bad mom. The words echoed in my skull. Ashley. No, baby, listen. I reached for her. She slapped my hand away. It was hard enough that my wrist stung. "Don't touch me. You don't even love me." Auntie Tiffany said so. I froze. Tiffany said what? But before I could react, Ashley hugged Tiffany tightly, glaring at me with hurt and anger no child her age should ever carry. Damien wrapped an arm around both of them. His posture was protective, and something inside me shattered so deeply I felt it physically, like my chest was caving in. They stood there together. They looked like the perfect little family, Damien, Tiffany, and Ashley. They looked fitting and complete, and I wasn't part of it, not anymore. Not ever again. Everything fell silent around me, including my wolf. She lowered herself inside my chest. Her ears went flat with heartbreak. I realized that nothing I did, nothing I begged for, nothing I sacrificed would ever be enough for this man or this pack. My place had been erased. I had been replaced. I turned away because I couldn't bear the sight. I couldn't breathe near them without feeling like I was suffocating. I walked back to the pack house in a numb haze. Once inside my study, I pulled out the divorce agreement with shaking hands. The ink I had written earlier was still fresh, still hopeful in its own way. Half the assets, custody, child support, all of it meant nothing now. Slowly, painfully, I crossed out the entire custody section. I wrote clear, decisive words, full custody to Damien Stone. No visitation, no intervention, no rights. My pen hovered for a long moment as something inside me howled in grief, but I forced myself to sign it. My signature looked lifeless, like someone else's hand wrote it. For the final time, I placed a trembling hand on my stomach. My wolf whispered weakly inside me. She was just as sad as I was. "I can't bring you into this," I murmured to the life barely forming inside me. "I can't do this to another child." Tears blurred my vision, but I kept moving. I put on my coat. I grabbed my bag. I walked out of the villa and headed straight to the hospital. I was determined, painfully, desperately determined, to terminate the pregnancy. To sever every remaining tie to Damien, to Tiffany, to this life that kept breaking me. I went ahead with the procedure. Even though my wolf whimpered inside me, I kept my jaw tight and my eyes forward. I signed the final consent form with a steady hand, refusing to show fear. My wolf flicked her tail in agitation, begging me to reconsider, but I silenced her with a single pained command in my mind: we survive on our terms. When I woke up afterward, I felt an ache in my abdomen. The pain wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. Even my wolf's spirit felt it. Yet beneath the ache, there was something else, a strange kind of calm. This was my choice. It was my territory. My body, my future. Dr. Nancy sat beside me, looking at me with concern. "Sophia," she said carefully, "you are strong, but strength isn't about doing everything alone. That pup, you could have kept it. You still had time to reconsider." I shook my head and stared at the window, watching the moon climb slowly into the sky. "Strength," I whispered, "is choosing the life that keeps you sane. I did what I needed to do. I won't bring a child into a home where their existence is used as leverage." I felt my throat tighten, but I didn't look away, or into a world where the father already chose someone else. Her expression softened. "Your wolf will mourn for a while. You must let her." "I will," I said quietly, "but mourning isn't the same as regret." For the next day and a half, I stayed in the hospital, recovering. I slept, drifted in and out, felt my wolf curl around me protectively. I allowed myself to feel the pain, not to break me, but to cleanse me. When I was finally discharged, I followed the doctor's instructions carefully. I rested. I ate. I healed slowly inside and out. But eventually, the need to confront everything I left unresolved hit me. 3 days later, I drove to the Stonewall Villa to formally discuss the divorce. As I approached the gates, my wolf growled at the familiar scent markers. I could still feel Damien's alpha aura around the property. The guards recognized my car and let me in. Inside the villa, I waited. Minutes stretched into nearly an hour. I was exhausted, but I was also determined. I had to do this. Finally, the butler Thide Cherry walked toward me with an apologetic look on her face. She looked nervous. "Luna Sophia, Alpha Damien isn't returning today," he said. She hesitated. It was either she was unwilling or afraid to repeat his exact words. "Say it," I said calmly. She swallowed. "He said the two of you should try again next month." For a moment, my breath simply stopped. My wolf went silent. She was stunned. "Try again next month." As if nothing had happened. As if my entire world hadn't shattered. As if he owned my womb. As if I were a vessel he could schedule like a business appointment. Cherry looked down. "He told me to give you that message." And the message was delivered, I said coldly. I placed the signed divorce agreement on the coffee table. "Tell him this is the last message he'll ever receive from me." Then I walked out. Outside, I heard the sound of approaching footsteps. Laughter floated in the air. A family's laughter. I stopped dead. In that moment, I could feel every muscle in my body tightening. There they were, Damien, Tiffany, and Ashley. It was a picture-perfect scene. Ashley held on to Tiffany's waist, babbling excitedly. Tiffany knelt to adjust the child's jacket, smiling with a warm, maternal glow that used to belong to me. Damien stood beside them. He had his hand resting on Tiffany's back. He looked protective and affectionate in a way he had never been with me. My wolf whimpered. Something inside me cracked. It was a slow break, like ice finally giving way after holding too much weight. Tiffany whispered something to Ashley, and Ashley laughed. She didn't even notice me standing there. None of them did. They looked like a perfect family. That was the moment the last thread snapped. I finally and truly let go. My phone buzzed. It was Laurel, my supervisor at the shelter I sometimes worked at when I was done with my Luna duties. I wiped my face quickly and answered. "Sophia." Laurel's voice came through, Your evaluations came back excellent. If you want, we can fast-track your training. You can begin full shifts next week." Next week? My voice was hoarse. I had totally forgotten about the training I had done some weeks ago. "Yes, and there is more. We're short on volunteers for the Rural Children's Health Screening Program. It is demanding, but I thought you might be interested. You always said you wanted meaningful fieldwork." For the first time in what felt like ages, something inside me lifted. "Yes," I said. "I want it. Please sign me up. Consider it done." When the call ended, I stood there for a long moment, breathing deeply. My wolf lifted her head inside me. It was as if she finally sensed a road that belonged to us. Not Damien, not Tiffany. Not the expectations of a pack that would never choose me. I walked to my car without looking back. Not at Damien, not at Tiffany, not even at Ashley. Some losses can't be reclaimed. Some bonds die before you realize they were already gone. And some women, some wolves, must learn to survive by shedding every part of the past that poisoned them. I drove away. I arrived at the pack house. It had been 2 months since my last meeting with Sophia, and the radio silence told me she hadn't gotten pregnant. Time to try again. I told myself that today would be different. My wolf had been restless for days. He kept pacing inside me as if sensing something, and I just dismissed it as anticipation. However, the moment I stepped into the foyer, I felt it. For some reason, the place felt empty. I called out, "Sophia." My voice echoed back at me. A figure moved ahead, and for a heartbeat, my chest went tight, thinking she was the one. But it was only the butler, Cherry. She bowed quickly, but the scent that reached me was wrong. Not Sophia, not even close. I narrowed my eyes. "Where is she?" Cherry flinched at the sound of my voice. "Alpha, Luna Sophia hasn't returned. Not since the last time you left." My wolf bristled. What did she mean she hadn't returned? I stepped closer, my tone dropping. "What do you mean she hasn't come back? She should have been here. I told her to wait here and that we'll try again this month." Cherry swallowed tightly. "She never came back, Alpha. Not once." The words hit me hard. I didn't respond. I simply turned and stormed out of the villa. My wolf growled. He was irritated. Where the hell did she go? Why didn't she call? I got into my car, slammed the door, and sped out of the pack house. Halfway down the road, my phone rang. It was Tiffany. Her voice came in smoothly through the speaker. "Damien, where are you? I just finished rehearsal. You didn't pick me up." "I am busy," I muttered. My eyes were fixed on the road as I scanned every turn, like Sophia might appear out of thin air. She sighed dramatically. "I have a performance tomorrow night, and because of that, I can't go to Ashley's school. They're having some family fun day. Could you tell Sophia to handle it? You know Ashley prefers me, but I won't be able to make it." I cut her off. "Sophia will do it." I said it automatically, not even thinking. I only wanted Tiffany to stop talking so I could focus. I'll let her know. Besides, Sophia always took care of everything. "Good," Tiffany replied, relieved. "Ashley will listen to her. Besides, she owes me after." I hung up before she finished. I called Sophia immediately. I got even more frustrated as her number rang once. Twice, then played a cold, pre-recorded message. "The number you are trying to reach is unavailable. or no longer in service. I stared at the screen, confused, then tried again. Same message. My brows pulled tight. Sophia, I muttered under my breath. What the hell are you doing? I texted her. Damien, where are you? Come home now. Message failed. I tried again. Failed. A strange pressure squeezed my chest. It felt strange. What the hell is going on? My wolf paced inside me. She wouldn't ignore us, he said. She never ignores us. My grip tightened on the steering wheel as I sped toward the city. For the first time in years, I realized I didn't know where my own wife was, or what she was doing, or who she was with, and it bothered me far more than it should have. Hi, Bidey. Sophia's point of view. I was finishing a late shift at the rural school clinic. The small children had exhausted every ounce of my strength. They might be pups, but they sure knew how to work a woman up. When I finally closed the clinic for the night, my legs ached and my wolf lay curled quietly inside me. We were both tired, but we felt peaceful. I reached my dorm room, tossed my bag onto the floor, and collapsed on the formal obligation. My phone was on silent from the clinic hours, but I didn't bother checking it. I was too tired to care. For once, sleep came easily to me. By morning, I woke up early. As I got ready, I remembered something suddenly. Today was my father's birthday. I smiled just thinking about it. I hadn't been home for months. I wanted to cook for him, laugh with my mother, sit with my niece. I wanted peace. I packed quickly, humming under my breath. My wolf hummed too. She felt really light. We both felt free. As I drove back to my childhood town, I felt happy. The moment I stepped into my parents' home, their sense hit me. Sophia, my mother gasped the second she saw me, pulling me into her arms. My girl, you didn't even tell us you were coming. My father peeked from the kitchen doorway. He grinned. Look at you, you came home. I laughed. Of course I did. It is your birthday. Before I could take another step, a tiny figure ran toward me. It was Camila, my niece. Her wolf aura was so small and adorable. She jumped at me and held onto my leg like a koala. Auntie Sophia, she squealed. Don't leave again. Her little voice cracked something inside me. I bent down and hugged her tightly, breathing in her innocent scent. I am not leaving today, I said softly. I promise. My mother cupped my face, studying me. You look tired, but softer, happier. I looked away, but the feelings inside me made my eyes sting. I am trying, I whispered. I am really trying. And in that moment, surrounded by real love, love that didn't demand anything of me, love that didn't force me to keep trying to produce heirs, I felt myself healing. My wolf stretched within me. She purred softly in a way she hadn't in years. I cooked, laughed, cut vegetables with my father beside me, listened to Camila's excited talks, and watched my mother hum at the stove. I felt alive in a way that made me realize just how dead I had been with Damien. For the first time, I wasn't Sophia Stone. I was simply Sophia, and that was enough. I sat at the head of the table, flipping through quarterly reports, pretending to focus while my wolf paced under my skin. Numbers bored him. Meetings infuriated him. But I forced both of us to sit still. My phone vibrated once on the table. I ignored it. Then it vibrated again and again. The receptionist would never call me repeatedly unless something was wrong. I lifted the phone. glanced at the screen, and froze. East Street Preschool calling. My chest tightened. Ashley, I answered instantly. What happened? A timid female voice came through. Alpha Damien, sir. This is Miss Mara from the preschool. We tried reaching Lunastone, but she is no longer my Luna. I cut in automatically, grumbling, then clenched my jaw. What is wrong with my daughter? Miss Mara hesitated, then spoke quickly. It is Family Fun Day. Ashley is the only pup whose mother didn't attend. She is very upset, sir. The room around me blurred. A low growl escaped my throat before I caught it. Sophia. She was supposed to handle this. Tiffany couldn't. Fine, but Sophia. I didn't even excuse myself. Chairs scraped the floor as every board member jumped to their feet in submission. Their wolves were reacting to mine. I walked out. Cancel everything for the rest of the day, I ordered my assistant without slowing down. Yes, Alpha. By the time I reached my car, my pulse was hammering. My wolf was restless. His ears were pinned back. He was pacing, confused and irritated. Why wasn't she there? Why didn't she call? I pressed a hand to my temple as I drove. Sophia had been distant for months. I hadn't heard a thing from her, but she always showed up for Ashley. Always. At the preschool, I found Ashley sitting alone on the swings. Her little shoulders were stiff. Her eyes were red. When she saw me, she didn't run into my arms. She glared. You didn't come either, she muttered. My heart squeezed. I had a meeting, baby, but I came as soon as they called me. She kicked the dirt. Where is Mom? Everyone else's mom came. I took in a deep breath. My wolf growled. The truth was that I had no idea where Sophia was. Not really. I'd been trying to call her since last night. No answer, no texts. Her number felt like a deadline. But I couldn't tell Ashley that. She already felt abandoned enough. So I knelt in front of her and brushed her hair behind her ear. Mom is at home preparing a big surprise. Ashley frowned. A surprise. I forced a smile. Your grandpa's birthday dinner is today. She wants it to be perfect. She stared at me suspiciously. Then why didn't she tell me? I swallowed the frustration burning in my chest. She wanted it to be a secret. You know, she loves surprising people. Ashley softened, but only a little bit. Okay. I lifted her into my arms, kissed her forehead. My wolf calmed, if only a little. Just then, my phone rang again. This time, it was my mom. I exhaled through my nose before answering. What? She clicked her tongue in annoyance. Is that how you greet your mother? Listen, tomorrow is your father's birthday. We're meeting at Alina Mall so we can drive together to the estate. Bring Ashley. She needs to look presentable as always. I know it is his birthday, I replied tightly. I'll bring her. And don't forget Sophia, she added sharply. She'd better not embarrass us again. The muscles in my jaw twitched. Sophia will be there. The call ended and I lowered the phone slowly, trying to suppress the irritation I felt. Sophia was not reachable, and I had no idea why. Ashley tugged on my sleeve. Daddy, can we go home now? Yes, baby. We'll get ready for tomorrow. But even as I drove home with her, my mind wasn't in the car. It was with Sophia, her silence, her absence. Hi, Bidey. By the time we reached the estate with my mom the next day, a knot had already formed in my stomach. The villa was dark. No light came in from the windows. No scent of cooking filled the air. There were no footsteps, no movement. My mom stormed inside first. "Sophia!" she shouted. "Sophia, where the hell are you?" Silence answered. I walked through the kitchen. The place looked untouched. The counters were spotless. No pots, no ingredients, no preparations. My heartbeat slowed. Sophia wasn't even here. Had she forgotten? What today was the same way she had forgotten to be at Ashley's school. My mother pulled out her phone. "She'll answer me," she declared, more to herself than to us. "She knows better." She dialed. The ringtone echoed through the quiet villa. Sophia didn't answer. Helen tried again, but she got no response. Then again. Nothing. Her temper snapped. She screamed and threw her phone away. It shattered into pieces on the wall. "She dares to humiliate us on your father's birthday," she shouted. "She is a shadow holding this pack back." Ashley hid behind my leg. I felt her trembling. My wolf snarled silently, ready to tear into anyone upsetting my daughter. But on the outside, I remained calm. Inside, though, something cold slid down my spine. Sophia had never failed. She had never forgotten any event. She would never disobey a direct instruction, especially not on a day like this. Something was wrong. Ashley's voice cracked as she looked between us. "Daddy, why didn't Mom come? She always cooks for Grandpa." Helen crossed her arms. "Because she is ungrateful." Ashley's little eyes filled with tears and she whispered, "Tiffany would have come. Tiffany always wants to be with me. Mom doesn't even like me. She embarrassed me on purpose." Her words stabbed deeper than they should have. I crouched down, taking her hands. "Ashley, look at me." She sniffed. "Your mom would never embarrass you," I said firmly. "Never. Something must have happened." But as I said it, doubt crept in. Because for the first time in years, Sophia felt completely gone. She had no presence in the house, no scent in the halls. My wolf lifted his head and growled inside me. "She is not here. She hasn't been here for a long time. She is slipping away." And I felt it. Too late. Dinner at my parents' house always smelled like home. My father sat at the head of the table with my mother beside him. My brother, Marco, and his wife, Patricia, were there too. She had their daughter, Clara, bouncing excitedly on her lap. I hadn't been surrounded by this much warmth in years. It felt almost too good. The laughter around the table made me smile. We ate slowly, talking over each other, like we always did. My wolf lay curled peacefully inside me, something she'd never been able to do at the pack house or even at Damien's private villa. Here, she didn't have to brace for Damien's alpha aura or Helen's harsh voice. Here, she could breathe. Halfway through the meal, while sipping hot broth, I realized I couldn't hold it in anymore. They deserved to know the truth, and I needed to say it out loud to finally claim my freedom. I set my spoon down. "I have something to tell you." Every head lifted. My father's brows furrowed. "Sophia, you are pale. Did something happen?" I inhaled deeply. Forks froze mid-air. Even the old wall clock seemed to stop ticking. Everyone was silent. They stared at me in shock for a while. Patricia blinked hard. "Wait, what? You are serious?" Marco leaned forward. "You are leaving the royal family, for real." My mother covered her mouth with her hand. "Sophia." I nodded. "Yes, I can't do it anymore. The insults, the pressure, the expectations. They don't see me. They never did. And I am giving up custody of Ashley. My father's chair scraped loudly as he stood. "You are giving up custody." His voice wasn't angry, just shocked. I looked down at my hands. Ashley doesn't want me. She has made that clear for a long time, and they'll never allow me to raise her outside the estate. She'll be happier with them. The silence that followed felt heavy, but not suffocating. It was just full of disbelief. Then Patricia exhaled loudly and slapped her hand on the table. Finally, I looked at her in shock. "Huh?" She grinned. "Sophia, we've all been waiting for the day you'd come to your senses. That family drained you dry. You used to glow. Now you look like an old soul stuck in a 20-something-year-old's body." She nudged Marco. "Tell her." Marco raised his cup. "Honestly, I thought you'd keep suffering forever. I am glad you are done." My mother blinked tears away, but she smiled. "Sweetheart, we just want you happy. If this is your choice, we stand with you." My father nodded slowly. "You were never meant to be a servant, Sophia. Not even to an alpha." And just like that, the heaviness I'd been carrying cracked open. Laughter followed. They cheered me up with their words. They even made jokes about how I should find a nice local wolf, maybe even someone who actually used the word please. Clara wrapped her tiny arms around my shoulders and shouted, "Auntie is free." I couldn't stop laughing. For the first time in years, my heart felt light. My wolf even wagged her tail. Just as I reached for another piece of grilled fish, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, expecting maybe Laurel to be the one calling, but the caller ID froze my blood. Damien. A chill slid down my spine. He never called me unless something was wrong. My wolf lifted her head instantly. I stepped away from the table and answered. "Hello?" His voice came harshly. "Where the hell are you?" I frowned. "Why? What happened?" "It is Ashley." His breathing was uneven, frantic in a way I'd never heard from him since Ashley was a baby. "She ate mango at the mall. She is in the hospital. Allergic reaction." My heart raced. "What? She is allergic to that? How severe?" "She couldn't breathe," he snapped. "Get to the hospital now." The call ended abruptly. I didn't have time to think. I grabbed my coat, barely managing to keep my voice steady as I shouted into the dining room. "Ashley's in the hospital. I have to go." Patricia dropped her chopsticks. "I am coming with you." Clara was already pulling on her tiny slippers. Me too. The three of us rushed out the door. I could feel my wolf sprinting ahead of me emotionally. I felt her instinct to protect overriding everything else. Damien might have wronged me, but Ashley was still my daughter. When we reached the hospital, the smell hit me first. Then the sight of Ashley lying on the formal obligation, pale and exhausted, made me weak. She had a small oxygen mask resting beside her. I moved to her side immediately. Ashley. Her eyes opened. I felt relieved, until her expression froze into something cold. "Oh, it is you," she muttered. I swallowed. "Are you okay? Does your chest still hurt? Your throat?" She turned her face away. "Why are you even here? You didn't come for me today, or yesterday, or ever." My throat tightened. Clara stepped forward, crossing her arms. "Hey, that is not fair. Auntie Sophia takes care of you all the time. You are the one who doesn't appreciate her, and just because she didn't come yesterday, you don't get mad at her." Ashley's lip trembled. "You don't know anything. She doesn't like me." "I do," I whispered, but my voice sounded small. "I love you so much." "No, you don't. she cried, tears spilling. Tiffany loves me. You don't show up. You don't care. You disappeared. Patricia opened her mouth, furious. Ashley. But before she could continue, the door opened and Damien walked in. He looked at Ashley first. He saw her crying and his entire face hardened. Then he turned to me with a glare. "What did you do to her?" he asked me. I rose slowly. "Damien, you disappear for days, and now she is crying the moment you walk in." Ashley sniffed, still upset. "Daddy, Tiffany wouldn't have let me get sick." Damien clenched his teeth and threw the dagger without hesitation. "Maybe because Tiffany is a better mother than you'll ever be." Something inside me went still, completely still. My wolf whimpered inside me. I nodded. "You are right." Damien gasped. "Sophia." I gently placed my hand on Ashley's blanket. "But since Tiffany is the better mother, tell me something." I looked directly at Damien. "Did either of you know Ashley is allergic to mangoes?" He stopped. He blinked repeatedly. He looked so confused. Ashley looked between us, sniffling. "Daddy didn't know." I continued. I kept my voice calm and professional, even though my heart felt like it was tearing. "She has multiple dietary restrictions. No mango, no red food dye, no tree nuts. She hates strawberries unless you slice them thin. She gets itchy when she eats too much bread. She can only sleep with a nightlight shaped like a moon." They both stared at me. I added softly, "You never asked. You never noticed." Damien's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. I stepped back from the formal obligation, smoothing Ashley's hair gently. "She'll be fine now. Don't give her anything except warm broth tonight. And make sure the nurses check her oxygen levels every 2 hours." I turned to Patricia and Clara. "Let's go." Ashley whispered behind me, "Soft. Mom, are you coming back?" My heart twisted, but I didn't turn around. "No," I said quietly. "Not anymore." With that, I walked out of the hospital, cutting the last fragile thread tying me to Damien and his family. Clara looped her tiny chubby fingers around my arm as we stepped out of Ashley's hospital room. Patricia followed behind us, quietly. My wolf was curled inside me. She was exhausted and silent. Her emotions matched the hollow ache in my chest. I had said everything I needed to say to Damien and my daughter. There was nothing left binding me to that family. Not really, not anymore. I kept my eyes forward, ready to leave the hospital entirely when I caught a scent. The scent was bitter and familiar. It could only belong to one person. Helen. I didn't even have time to brace myself. She stepped out from behind a corner as if she had been waiting. "You have the nerve," she hissed before I could move past her. "You didn't just abandon your husband, you abandoned your daughter." Her voice carried the edge of a Luna's command, that need to be obeyed undertone. But I had lived beneath the Stone family's aura for years. It didn't shake me anymore. I glared at her. "I didn't abandon anyone," I said softly. "Oh," Helen snapped. "Then why did Ashley wake up alone? Why does she cry for Tiffany? Why is she terrified every time you disappear? What kind of mother are you?" Patricia muttered something under her breath, but Helen ignored her. She wasn't here for the truth. She was here to wound me. In the past, I would have scrambled to defend myself, to explain, to justify. But I felt strangely calm now. I was detached. My wolf lifted her head, but only to observe, not to fight. "I am not explaining myself to you," I said, stepping around her. Helen grabbed my arm. Her nails bit into my skin, and her wolf pushed against mine. "You irresponsible, ungrateful." My wolf reacted instantly, rising with a quiet growl only I could hear inside my mind. Not today. I removed her hand from my arm, one finger at a time, meeting her angry eyes. "Let go of me," I said evenly. For a moment, Helen seemed stunned, like she finally realized that the weak, obedient Sophia she knew no longer existed. "You'll regret this," she spat after me. But I didn't look back. I simply walked away. Hi vidai vidi song. Damien's point of view. Mom stormed back into the room. I knew she had caused a scene. Her scent was filled with anger. Ashley flinched, covering her ears. "That woman is impossible," Helen exploded. "Your wife just brushed past me like I am dirt under her shoes. She doesn't care about her daughter. She doesn't care about any of us." I exhaled slowly. "Mother, she is just being emotional." "Emotional?" Helen barked. "She is disrespectful." I didn't reply. I was too tired to argue, and honestly, Sophia's behavior didn't worry me. She had always been sensitive. She would cool off. She always did. Or at least, she used to. As I rubbed my temple, I was suddenly reminded of something else, something more important. My wolf stretched inside me with a restless huff. Ovulation. I straightened in my seat. Right, it was the window. The fertile period, the time we couldn't afford to miss again. If Sophia would simply get pregnant, everything else would fall into place. "She'll come home," I said dismissively, grabbing my keys. "I'll talk to her." Helen blinked. "Damien, where are you going?" "Ashley needs you." "You are here," I said, already heading for the door. "I'll handle Sophia." My wolf approved, pushing me forward. I had to find her, complete the task, then restore order. I left the hospital, got into my car, and began dialing her number. It rang once. Then I heard the automated voice. "This number is currently unreachable." I frowned and tried again. Same result. She turned off her phone. I muttered. My wolf growled softly. He was already impatient. I texted her, "Where are you? Call me. We need to talk. Answer your phone." No response. Something cold pricked the back of my neck. I didn't pause. I drove straight home, hoping she had simply gone there ahead of me. When I arrived, the villa was silent. "Sophia," I called out as I entered. Someone stepped out from the hallway for a split second. My heart lifted. "Sophia." The woman turned. It was a maid. "Alpha?" she asked, startled. I froze, feeling embarrassed. "Where is Sophia?" She looked nervous. I haven't seen her since that day. My wolf's ears perked. I didn't waste another second. I left the villa again, already dialing her number. This time, it didn't even ring. It went straight to failed connection. She was avoiding me. I drove us back to my parents' home. When we pulled up in front of the house, I let out a deep breath. I was finally home again. As soon as I stepped in, my mother rushed toward me. "Sophia, you are finally here." She hugged me tightly. My father appeared behind her, grinning through his beard. My brother popped his head from the kitchen. "Look who decided to show up," he teased. It felt good. I felt safe. We sat around the table, eating and laughing. Then my father pointed his spoon at me dramatically. "Now that you are single again, Sophia, we can finally introduce you to Dad." I groaned, laughing. He wiggled his eyebrows. What? A strong she-wolf like you needs a worthy mate. My mother smacked him with a napkin. Let her breathe, honey. We all laughed. Then my phone buzzed. I checked it. It was a message from Damien, inviting me to a family dinner at the villa. Dinner, of course. My wolf snorted softly in my chest. He only wants one thing, she said inside my mind. I know, I whispered, but this time I had something I needed too, his signature on the divorce papers. So I agreed to see him. I made up an excuse and left. When I arrived at the villa, Damien was already waiting for me. You are late, he muttered. I wasn't aware. This was a scheduled appointment, I said. He gestured for me to follow him inside. I did. The moment we entered, his intention became obvious. His aura became heavier and stronger, the way it always did during my fertile period. His wolf pushed into the space between us, trying to reignite routines I no longer wanted to be part of. I stepped back. The divorce agreement is in the study, I said calmly. If you want to talk, read it. Damien froze. He looked shocked. What are you talking about, Sophia? Before he could speak further, my phone buzzed. It was a call from Bianca, my best friend. I answered immediately. All I heard was drunken sniffling and slurred words. Sophia, I need you, please. I don't know, somewhere. I think I am stuck. Damien glared. Really now? I ignored him. I am coming, I told her, and hung up. I grabbed my bag. I turned to see Cherry the butler standing in a corner there. I looked at her. Cherry, if Damien has objections to anything in the agreement, tell him to contact me. Then I walked out. I didn't give him the chance to stop me. I didn't look back at him standing there in disbelief. I left the villa behind with my wolf howling proudly beside me inside my chest. See, dumb bison. Damien's point of view. Cherry's voice followed me down the hallway as I walked toward the study. Alpha Damien, I placed the documents you requested in a safe location, the divorce papers. I stopped abruptly. You what? I stored them securely, she said, folding her hands neatly. Where? I demanded, though part of me didn't want to know because knowing meant facing the reality that Sophia actually prepared those documents in advance. It wasn't a bluff. She meant it. She was actually serious. Was she for real? Before Cherry could answer, my phone rang. Mother's name flashed across the screen. I gritted my teeth. What now? The second I answered, her frantic voice shrieked through the receiver. Damien, Ashley is crying and won't calm down. She keeps calling for you and she is extremely unsettled. You need to come back right now. My chest tightened. Ashley never cried like that unless she was terrified or sick. My wolf snapped to attention. I am coming, I muttered, already turning around. The thought of the divorce papers left my mind instantly. Ashley came first, always. Cherry called after me. Alpha, the files. Later, I snapped as I headed for the door. Send me the location. Yes, Alpha, she murmured, bowing her head. The drive back to the hospital was a blur. My instincts got sharper with every passing second. My claws were practically breaking through my fingertips as my wolf sensed my daughter's distress. Sophia flashed through my mind. She always knew how to calm Ashley. She would hum quietly while stroking her hair until Ashley relaxed. Sophia had a scent that soothed children, and now she wasn't here. The thought made my chest burn. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel as I drove. My phone kept buzzing on the seat, and when I picked up again, I heard Bianca's broken voice. "Sophia." "He broke his promise again," she said, her voice crackling over the line. "He was with her, that same girl, can you imagine? He completely betrayed me." "Can you imagine?" she hiccuped, sniffling loudly. She was talking about her boyfriend, who was nothing but an unfaithful man. "I thought he changed. I thought he loved me." I kept my eyes on the road, Bianca. I know it hurts. I know exactly how it feels. Believe me. My claws threatened to push out at the memory, but I kept them in check. "But you don't deserve this. Not this kind of pain. Not this kind of disrespect." She sobbed harder. "But I love him." "Love shouldn't bruise your chest like this," I murmured, and my wolf howled quietly inside me, remembering the nights I deeply upset the loss of Damien, over his coldness, over the way he left marks on my heart. "Love shouldn't make you feel like you are begging to be chosen." "But I am not ready to leave," she whispered. "What if he really changes? What if I am throwing away something good?" "Bianca, you are not throwing away something good. You are letting go of something that is drowning you." Her breath hitched. "Sophia, how did you know when to walk away? How did you do it?" My heart twisted. The truth was, I wasn't fully out of it yet. It still hurt. But I said honestly, because the moment I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself anymore, I knew I had already lost more than I should have. That is when I walked, or tried to. She went quiet, and then she spoke. "I don't want to be alone." "You are not alone," I said immediately. "I am coming to get you. I won't leave you alone tonight." "Okay." When I found her outside the club, her makeup was smudged. She had her shoes in her hands. I wrapped my arms around her instantly. She collapsed into me, burying her face into my shoulder. "Sophia, I am so stupid." "You are not stupid," I whispered, running my hand down her back. "You are just hurting, and you are drunk. Come on, let's go." She clung to me all the way to the car, and when I settled her into the passenger seat, she looked at me with teary, confused eyes. "Why does it feel like it hurts everywhere? Even my wolf feels tired." "Because your heart is tired." I pushed her hair behind her ear gently, and hearts heal slower than bones. She sniffed. "Can I sleep?" "Yes, sleep." I started the car again, and she dozed off with her head against the window. Fie, Bida. The next morning, I got dressed for the market, tying my hair back and slipping comfortable sandals on. It was my father's birthday. At the market, I walked between stalls. The sellers recognized me immediately, greeting me cheerfully. I picked yams, vegetables, spices, fresh chicken, and everything else I would need. Back at home, the whole place felt alive. My mother was in the kitchen, arranging spices. Marco was arguing with the blender, threatening to throw it out of the window. I didn't even try not to laugh. "Marco, leave the blender alone," I said, stepping inside. He narrowed his eyes at me. "Where have you been? You didn't sleep here last night." "Relax," I replied, rolling my eyes. "I went to help Bianca." He paused, staring at me. "Are you okay?" My chest tightened, but I smiled. "I am okay." Without another word, he clicked his tongue and muttered, "Good. Now help me before I burn this house down." The house soon filled with music, old songs, the ones my mother loved, the ones that made my father dance even when he pretended to be serious. We moved around each other, cooking, chopping, frying, washing, bumping hips playfully. My wolf purred quietly. I had never realized how much she missed this. At one point, Marco grabbed my waist and spun me around dramatically. "Dance, woman." I screamed and slapped his shoulder while everyone laughed. Marco put me down, but even as I laughed, I felt tears at the back of my eyes. I had spent so many years serving the Stones. I was so lost in their cold mansion, disconnected from the people who actually loved me. Today felt like a memory I didn't know I needed. When dinner was finally served, the entire table lit with joy. My father blessed the meal, kissed my forehead, and said, "This is the best birthday dinner I've had in years, Sophia." My heart swelled. For the first time in years, I was at home. Later that evening, I looked at my phone. I hesitated a bit. I hadn't posted on my social media since my marriage. Not once. I opened the app. My profile looked abandoned and forgotten. I swallowed, then clicked on the camera roll and selected the photos from the birthday. My father holding his cake, my mother laughing with flour on her face, Marco pretending to look serious, Clara sticking her tongue out behind me, Patricia pointing at the food spread and the candles glowing. Without overthinking, I posted them. Caption: "At home with people I love. Happy birthday, Dad." As soon as it uploaded, I let out a deep breath. Something inside me shifted. It was something small, quiet, but powerful. This was the start of my new life. The front door slammed and I felt my wolf jerk awake under my skin. His ears pricked. Stonewall Villa was always filled with the energy of wolves. I could see the servants shifting, guards moving, pack warriors passing through, but the bitter scent of anger was too obvious, and I knew exactly whose anger it belonged to. My mother. I walked into the hallway and found her pacing. Her claws were halfway out even though she tried to keep them hidden. Her hair was wild and her skin looked pale. The moment she saw me, she pointed toward the foyer as if throwing a dagger. "Damien, your wife has gone too far." I let out a deep breath. What happened now? She went back to her parents' house today of all days. My mother's voice rose as she spoke. "On your father's birthday, do you have any idea how that makes our family look? How it makes the pack look?" My wolf growled inside me, not out of anger toward her, but from irritation at unnecessary drama. Helen Stone was respected by the pack. She was feared by some, worshipped by others. But she was exhausting when she let her emotions take over. "Mother," I said calmly, "maybe Sophia didn't know it was Dad's birthday. She barely knows our schedule." "That is the problem," she snapped. "A Luna, if she even deserves that title, should know these things." I folded my arms. "She is not the Luna." Helen blinked, stunned. "What do you mean she is not the Luna? She is your wife." "Wife by circumstance," I corrected. My voice was flat. I felt my wolf shift under my skin. "Mother, I barely know her. We got married because of the pregnancy, because I needed an heir she had failed to provide. Nothing more." She stared at me as if I'd grown two heads. "Damien, how can you speak like this so carelessly?" "Because it is the truth." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. My calm irritated her more than any rage could. There was never a relationship to protect. There was no bond, no courtship, no pack connection. We did what was required when unexpected situations happened. Her jaw clenched. "You should have brought her back home today." What will people say when they hear the Stone wife abandoned her husband on his father-in-law's birthday? It is her father's birthday as well. My mother froze. and the realization hit her. She had been raging blindly without even considering that Sophia had gone home to honor her own family. She sighed but refused to admit she was wrong. She never did. She still should have been here. I don't think so. In fact, I don't care. So that is it. You don't care where she goes, what she does. Number, I shrugged. I don't. My mother let out a long, annoyed sigh. You men are all the same. Then maybe stop expecting me to be different, I said, walking past her. Behind me, my mother's voice followed. Damien, this will come back to bite you. I didn't turn around, maybe, but today is not that day.